All right, well, his third walk of 2024 commences in just a couple of weeks. It is none other than Agima's Dante, Morales, and Dante. I'm so looking forward to this, man. How you been?
I've been good, man. I've been training hard, been getting ready for this third fight. I'm really excited. Staying active feels really good. I love it. And yeah, man, feeling good.
Yeah, that's one of the big things I wanted to ask you. This busy schedule. I mean, 2024 has been filled with fights for you. How is your body holding up coming into this third camp?
I feel great, man. I feel great. I've done a lot of stuff right. And then also there's things that are luck, a lot of times you get injured, it's not up to you. And thankfully I haven't been through that. But I feel great, I have stuff lined up even after this fight. I'm running a marathon after this fight. So I feel great, man. I feel great.
Couple of things I want to ask you about that. Have you ever had to? I know you've been an athlete and obviously a wrestler in the past. Have you had to sustain some substantial injuries throughout your athletic careers and endeavors?
Yeah, 100%. Especially in wrestling, wrestling is a lot of wear and tear and a lot of big injuries. My senior year, I was wrestling with two torn shoulders, torn hip flexor, and then just lifelong injuries that I feel like I'm gonna have for the rest of my life, like my neck and stuff. But it's just stuff that we get through with icy hot and willpower.
You also mentioned running a marathon in the near future. How far is that going to be removed from this next fight?
About a month or so. Yeah, so I'm training. I'm not fully um training for, obviously the fight is my priority, but I'm also running long distances, and which I also feel like it helps for my fight. Putting miles in and doing a little bit of long distance cardio combined with high intensity cardio, I feel like it's been helping me a lot.
Have you done long distance running like this in the past, or is this kind of a new venture for you?
It is. It actually started this year. My buddy runs marathons, and he was training for one in April, and he was like, "Hey, help me train for this one." And I was kind of preparing for my fight in February, and I was like, "Sure, man, I'll help you." And we started kind of running 8 miles, 10 miles, and it was like, "Oh, I kind of like this. It's pretty fun." And so I've been kind of. I'm not a full time runner or anything, but I like it. I've been getting into it. I've been dipping my toes in that world.
So, did you use a lot of that to help you train for that June fight as well? Because, I mean, obviously, that was prior to the February fight. Obviously, you had the June camp as well. Have you been kind of prepping your body, and do you think it helped you at all in that last fight?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I think the biggest thing that has helped me is a lot of times lactic acid kind of builds up in your legs coming into that second round, and even in sparring and when you do wrestling, you get back up and your legs feel a little bit heavier. I feel like running long distances have changed that completely. My legs are a lot more conditioned, I feel like, and they don't feel as heavy. They feel a lot lighter. They feel a lot better.
Have any of your other Agima teammates subscribed to this ideology, or are they all just still
No,
sticking to
I
the gym?
I try to get Brandon. Brandon, I was like, hey man, let's do 10 miles today. He's like, why would I do that? No. And I completely understand. It's not necessary if you're a fighter to do that kind of stuff. It's really not, but I like it. I really enjoy it, mind and body wise. So, but no, Gima guys have come. Maybe they will. Who knows?
One of these days, one of these days. How did you
Yeah.
feel in your showing back in June? I mean, you passed that test once again with flying colors and now 2-0, looking so far like you've been basically dominant through those two fights thus far.
It felt great, man. I felt really, really happy with my performance. I was kind of looking forward to a first round finish, kind of like my first fight in. But he did a really good job defending and staying safe. I was kind of frustrated at the beginning. I was like, oh, come on, end of the first round already. But looking back at it, it felt great. There's obviously stuff that I need to improve and stuff that I wish I did better. But that's just comparing myself to the future version of myself, and that's never good. But yeah, looking back at it, I feel great. I got some nice takedowns. I remained composed, which I loved. And yeah, I felt great looking back at it.
How much more comfortable did you feel in there from from the second fight compared to the first fight?
You know, Oddly enough, it wasn't too different. I felt like the I'd had more composure when getting punched,
Mm-hmm.
but coming in there, I felt really, really focused both times. Just really calm, and obviously I was very nervous backstage and throughout. I'm nervous right now thinking about this next fight. I was terrified before my last two fights, but in the cage, I felt super calm and super composed and super focused. So yeah.
At what point do the nerves go away? Is it once your music hits? Is it once the Vaseline is on your face, or once you enter the cage, or when is it?
It's funny you say that. After my first fight, I think I told you because you were there in St. George. I felt like Dane hypnotized me. I was super nervous. I was super scared, and my heart was just beating out of my chest. And then Dane put the Vaseline on my face, and he was like, "All right, now we calm." And he just kind of talked me through this like breathing exercise right before getting in the cage. And after he moved away, it was like no nerves at all. It was just calm, no feelings at all. It was just focused. And I was like, "Dane, you did something to me, man. I don't know what you did, but yeah." So I think that's when I'm about to step in the cage.
I'm very
Yeah.
curious because I know Dane and love Dane to death. What was his reaction when you told him that he hypnotized you?
He just laughed. I think he's hiding something. I think he's kind of he has like some special power or something with his fighters. But yeah, I'm sure that to him, he's heard that before, like, oh man, you made me really calm before the fight. Because having Dane backstage is phenomenal. The warm up he puts you through, both technically and in terms of support and mental wise. It's awesome having him there. He always remains super, super calm. You're super nervous, you're pacing back and forth. And then you see Dane and he's just like, "You feeling, man?" And you're like, "Oh, I'm good." And you just calm down immediately when you talk to him. He's awesome.
Agima is such an active fight team. And given on these Fierce Fighting Championship nights, there's not just one Agima fighter ever. It's two, three, four people. How are your coaches kind of dividing and conquering, making sure all fighters are good in the back? Because again, there's a number of you.
Yeah, well, actually, for my fight in St. George, I ended up being the only one, so it was kind of a different experience. But this last fight in June, it was awesome having Logan back there and Mike up back there, and it was just not a problem for Dane. He's done this before, so he warmed one person up, and then they fought, and then he gave me drills to do while the first person was fighting, and then he changed to me, and yeah, I didn't feel like I was ignored at all. I didn't feel like anybody was not warming up the way they were supposed to. And then we also have a couple of back there that also help us, like Marco. He was back there helping us wrap our hands and helping us just put music on and just relaxing. So also the environment in general, having people that we know and trust, it's also awesome.
With other teammates on the card, are you watching the fights? I know that you guys are able to watch them in the back. Are you watching, or are you primarily just focused on yourself and making sure that you're all dialed in?
No, that's actually something I used to do in wrestling because you're in the mat and you're looking at people wrestle. And I don't know what the science is behind it. I've heard people say that it gives you an adrenaline dump. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm not a scientist, but I do feel like it helps me focus when I don't look at the fight. My last fight, Miko was out there fighting, and it was a crazy fight. He had a banger of a fight. He was the first fight on the card, and I just didn't watch it. I just heard the crowd cheering, and I just stayed focused. And I think that helped me a lot. I'll definitely do it again. I just feel like staying focused and staying on what I need to work on is super important.
In some ways, is it nice that two of your main training partners, Brendan and David, are both going to be after you? So you can kind of, get your nerves out of the way, and then you can potentially enjoy their fights as well.
Yeah, that's actually also something I thought about, and it's awesome. That, and it's also awesome having training with me, for a fight because they were gonna train with me regardless. But it's different when we all have a fight. It's different when we all have one opponent and one date in mind, and it's all the same date. So that's gonna be great. And then obviously, I'm gonna be done with my fight and just hopefully grab a brownie, sit down, and enjoy the menace and David Kim put on a show. I'm really really excited.
Was the plans to always be a fighter? Have you always wanted to do this? I know obviously you come from wrestling, but was the plan even in high school to, someday become an MMA fighter?
Yes. I started training when I was about 14, and I did jujitsu and kind of a little bit of kickboxing. And I was like, I love this. I love this. I started watching MMA, and I was like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. So when I went into high school, I wrestled because I wanted to be an MMA fighter. Because everybody talks about how wrestling is the best base for MMA. I agree. And I wrestled because I want to do this. So it's always been the plan. It's always been the goal to have this as a career, not as just a hobby, but as a career that I can do for the rest of my life.
So I know a lot of those wrestling origins come from Florida. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah. I wrestled in Miami.
And so, what was it like being in Miami, and what's the wrestling scene like out there?
So, well, the Florida wrestling scene is tough. Not as tough as some of these other states like Ohio and Pennsylvania and California, obviously. But what's funny is that South Florida, specifically Miami, where I'm from, is the toughest out of every region in Florida. Most talent is just concentrated in South Florida. So, funny enough, a lot of times the district finals, the regional finals, were the state finals and the semifinals. So the top four in the district would also be the top four in the state. I remember they called my district the District of Doom because out of the 8 teams in the district, like four of them were ranked top 10 in the state. So it was really interesting um, to wrestle in that environment in South Florida where it's just so much talent combined in such a short amount of space, you know? So it was fun.
So I know of your girlfriend. You've spoken about her in the past. Did she follow you to Utah? Did you follow her? How did that all come to be?
She brought me here. She grabbed me and she threw me on an airplane, and I just kind of ended up here. Um, no, we both wanted to go somewhere else after high school. We graduated high school and we had planned to go somewhere else. We looked at a couple of states. We wanted to go to Hawaii at first, and then we looked at the prices and we were like, no, thank you. And then we kind of started looking at this Utah, Arizona area, and we just kind of looked at Utah. She applied to UVU, and we just kind of came here. We didn't know anybody. We have no family in Utah at all. We just kind of came here by ourselves. I found Agima on Topology. I actually came to Agima because I was looking and I found Brandon Myers and I saw he had a fight and he was really active. And that's what impressed me the most about Agima, looking at Topology pages out of all the gyms, is how active they were. So I kind of walked into Agima and I was like, hey, I want to fight. And they welcomed me in. So that was it.
When was that? How long ago was that you came here to
Year
Utah?
ago. It just turned a year ago. We got here July 4th of July to Utah. And yeah, we kind of found an apartment and we started that so a year ago. Yeah.
That's fascinating. Okay, so another question I have, and this was just from doing a little bit of stalking on the social media, is obviously born in Ecuador, Florida was a mainstay. What does Nebraska have to do with all this?
Nebraska.
I thought I saw Nebraska like
Oh yeah.
on your
Oh, okay,
social
okay.
media handles of
Yeah.
some
So
sort.
I said that I have people watching me from Miami to Nebraska. I have my best friend, one of my best friends from middle school, lives in Nebraska.
Oh, okay.
And before the fight, he sent me a video or like just like telling me all the people in Nebraska that were there watching my first fight with him. And I just that meant the world to me, man, because just a random state, Nebraska, you know, a bunch of people watching me. And obviously it's because of him, but yeah, that meant a lot to me. So I just put that in there, you know, that I have people over the country watching me and it means the world to me.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense now. I
Yeah,
was a little bit confused, but there it is. Okay. So
yeah.
how much of your Florida teammates are following you? Because I feel like when we post about you on the Fierce socials, there's so much support, obviously from the Agima faithful, but also a lot of people from Florida like to chime in and really, voice their support of you. How much are you keeping in contact with those people back east?
A lot, man. I mean, they're my family, my literal family, and also my secondary family. You know, I have Freedom Fighters over there. Freedom Fighters is a phenomenal gym out of Florida. Ray, Manolo, and all my training partners have been amazing. The past year, 4 or 5 years, I've trained with them, um, especially jiu-jitsu, and they've been phenomenal. And they're super loyal and strong every time I fight. And also my literal family, you know, my mom, my dad, cousins, extended Cuban family that are all go crazy every time I fight. You know, I have a lot of support in Miami, a lot of support, and it means the world to me.
You mentioned that you've wanted to be a fighter since you were literally a kid. I mean, like 14 years old, and you say that you want to do this. How much does the sport of MMA mean to you? And when I say that, how much has your dedication to this kind of shaped you and formed you into who you are and who you want to become?
As high of a percentage of us I could give you, 110%. You know, I was not good in high school, school wise, and that's a mistake. I'm not glorifying that. I was not a good student, but every decision I made, I knew that I wanted to be a fighter. You know, I wanted to be a fighter. Whether I wrestled, I did jujitsu, everything I did. It was just how is this gonna help me become a fighter? And even now, you know, now I'm an adult and have a bit more responsibilities, but I still think about that. How is this gonna help me become a fighter? How is this gonna help me improve? And that's all not all I care about, but that's all I strive towards career and professional wise is just becoming a fighter. And I work too, but this is what I want to do. 100%, no doubt about it.
2-0 at the moment. Obviously, your third fight coming up on September 7th. What does the rest of this year look like? And how much longer do you want to stay an amateur before you do potentially make that jump? And I don't want to suggest that it needs to happen right now, but I'm just curious of what your goals are in terms of your MMA career.
I'm not entirely sure what the rest of the year looks like. I would like to fight obviously now, do my marathon and maybe rest for the last 2 months and fight early next year. I think that would be perfect to have just a little rest after my marathon and let the body heal, let the mind heal too. It's a lot of pressure each training camp. Good pressure, obviously, not bad pressure, but it can be tiring. I feel like so. I think after this fight, maybe wait until January, February, but it all depends. It all depends on the opportunity. I know, my friend is gonna win the belt right now, and I'm just gonna let him do his thing. We have a few flyweights fighting out, so we'll see how it shapes out. And as long as staying an amateur, my goal is to turn pro at 21. So not before I turn 21, but when I'm 21, I would like to go pro. But it's honestly all up to Dane and Amy. They know best. They know way more than me. And whenever they think I'm ready, whenever whatever plan they have for me, I think it's gonna be the best plan. They're extremely knowledgeable.
This actually just sparked another question that I had, and that is, when you made that walk back in February down in St. George, how ready did you feel for that moment? Because that was a culmination of years up to that point. Obviously, with Agima, who you hadn't been for longer than 7-8 months at that point. But how did you feel going into that debut fight, given all the years that you had prepared leading into it?
I felt extremely ready, and it felt like not that it should have happened before, but almost like it had happened before, and it was just supposed to happen at that time. When I got here, I think I started training at Agima in August, and we started talking, and there was even some talk about me fighting in September. And Dane said, "No, let's wait until February for you." And he told me, he said, "I think you're ready skills wise, but I want to sharpen you up a little bit more." And every time Dane talks to me, I just fully believe in what he's saying, fully. And it comes from the way he talks and speaks to me, and also what he shows. We both know Dane is a master of what he does. And I think that just brings a lot of confidence. So when he told me, "Hey, February, I think you're ready," I fully believed him. And yeah, I felt ready.
What are your thoughts on your opponent, Mateo Romero, coming into September 7th?
I don't know a ton about him. I know this is his debut. I know he's a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. I actually trained with him earlier in the year. I'm not sure when exactly, but he came to Agima. A couple of the guys from his gym came to Agima, and I trained with him, but I don't remember almost anything of training with him. So now I'm like trying to go through my memory and look for when I did train with him. But I don't know too much about him. I just know that he's probably training very, very hard, as hard as he could possibly train. I know he has some jiu-jitsu experience, and that's also fun, He's a grappler. I'm a grappler, so I feel like it's a different test for me, and I'm very, very excited. I'm sure that he's training extremely hard, and I'm doing enough to match that.
So many big names on this card, and you are one of them that certainly flies off the film. Dante Morales, thank you so much for the time, man. Really appreciate it. Do you have any friends, sponsors, family that you want to give a thank you to before we close things out?
Just thank you to all my friends and family that support me, like you were saying. Everybody who supports me in Miami and all over the country. My girlfriend, she's amazing, and just all my family. Thank you so much.
Cannot wait for it. Thank you so much, Dante.